Alright, so if you're looking at this slide with me, this is the broad format of the accounts paper, which most of you all are well versed with. While very honestly, the CA Institute doesn't really recommend a format and it may change anytime, but this is broadly the way they've been asking for the last 3 to 4 attempts. The first question is a compulsory question, usually of 20 marks. Okay, and the 20 marks also is usually about 14 to 16 marks is theory, and about 4 to 6 marks they put in some number driven practical question that makes up your 20 marks, which is the first question. After that, generally the institute puts in 5 questions and they ask you to attempt any 4 of 20 marks each. That's the remaining 80 marks. This 80 marks is majorly focused on practical questions, and that's the way 100 marks is made up. How are the 20 marks? Well, the split within the 20 could be just anything. It could be the one question of 20 marks, it could be 2 questions of 10 marks each, it could be a 14 and a 6 mark question, it could just be anything. There is no real format to that, okay? But broadly, you have to be prepared for 1 compulsory and about 4 questions out of 5 that the institute is going to ask, okay? Now, I have done a very quick study for you of how various topics have been tested over the last 3 attempts of the CA Foundation exam. And if you're looking at this slide with me, we've also tried to put in the topics, in order of the marks that they are tested for. So the first topic, which is theoretical framework, which is typically the theory which we did in the classroom, okay, has been coming on an average for about 6 to 8 marks if you see. And the second topic, which is your accounting process, which is your chapters on journal, ledger, rectification of errors, has again been coming for on an average about 10 marks. So the first question, compulsory question of the paper, is usually asked from the first and the second topic. All right. So I think mastering that is extremely important. Okay. Learn the theory very well. Go through the things that we have underlined. Memorize the terms and terminologies very well, because see, your language is going to be very, very important. You cannot write in loose language. Okay. Even when you're practicing at home, if there are parts you want to just quickly write or scribble on a notepad, do that. Okay, but a lot of focus on the first and the second chapter will hopefully help you crack question number 1 very, very well. After that, if you observe, the institute has generally been asking questions on a good number of marks in final accounts, partnership accounts, which is your admission, retirement, death, and company final accounts. Okay. On an average, 10 to 15 marks has been coming from each of these 3 topics. So I think those are the next 3 topics that you should take up for your study. So after you finish the first and second topic, final accounts, partnership accounts, and company accounts put together, and even bank reconciliation statements, if you observe the 6th one, they've been asking consistently a question of 10 marks each. So I think the first 6 topics, if you sort of quickly add up the marks, is almost 45 to 50 marks of the syllabus done. So my recommendation to you would be that you study these topics in the order in which it's written. After that, if you observe, NPO has been coming, since the last 2 attempts for again 10 to 12 marks. Inventories has only come in the last attempt. Depreciation is about 10 marks. Bills of exchange is about 5 marks in the last attempt. Sale of goods on approval, it's a small chapter, may come for 4 to 5 marks. Consignment was asked last 2 attempts, wasn't asked in the last attempt, but if it's asked, it's again a 10 mark question. After that, chapters like ADD, account current, are usually asked for about 3 to 5 marks. So when you sit to study, like I said, master the first 6 topics extremely well, from theoretical concept up to BRS and NPO, and then you can take in the remaining topics. That doesn't mean that the remaining topics are not important. Suddenly there may be a 10 mark question on it and maybe the whole priority will change, but this is broadly basis what has been asked in the past papers so far. Okay. The next thing that I'd like to stress on is how do you really study a particular topic. Okay, so there are 5 very important sources which need to be considered. Number 1, most importantly, the first source has to be Pinnacle Notes. I think the notes that we've given you in the class are very comprehensive. They cover most questions, I would say, from the module, past papers, past revision test papers, past mock papers. So I think a sizable amount will already happen if you study from the Pinnacle notes first. After that, I would suggest that you pick up the revision test paper and the mock test paper, which has recently come for the November 19 exams. I think that is obviously not covered because it's very recent. So please pick those papers up and practice all the questions from there. Thereafter, there have been several class tests which have been taken throughout the year. I think going back to those class tests and looking at your mistakes or practicing questions that were asked is very, very important. And you could do that chapter wise as you study. And I would also recommend in the end, please go through the suggested answers of the last exam, which is May 2019 exam. Now, the reason I ask you to go through the suggested answer is I want you to see what is the expectation of the institute. How do they expect you to answer? Okay, what is the presentation that is expected in the exam? Go through that. I think that will also give you a very good perspective of how the examiner is going to correct your paper. So I think if you do these 5 things, you are going to be extremely well grilled prepared for the paper. Next question is obviously how much to practice while you study your topic. So I think the best thing to do is, if there are, let's say, 10 questions in a particular chapter, it is extremely important that at this stage you at least practice 2 to 3 questions. When I say practice, I mean write, so that you don't blank out in the exam and so that your hand moves very, very smoothly with the presentation. So at least 2 to 3 questions, I would say, pick up the top 2-3 tough questions and write them as you practice. The remaining questions, while obviously they can be read through, it's very important that you mark out for yourself all key adjustments you will be seeing one day before the exam. Students, please note, one day before the exam, you will not have time to sit and solve any question. It is not even recommended that you solve one day before the exam. That day, you are only going to scan through all important adjustments. You're going to look at all important concepts, and you're going to look at the list of mistakes that you've been making in a chapter throughout the year, so you remind yourself you don't make that mistake again. Okay, that's your preparation for the last 1.5 days. I repeat, all important concepts and journal entries, all important adjustments, and a list of mistakes in each chapter you want to remind yourself of. You could probably have a separate list. Each of you know the kind of mistakes you make. You will have your list for yourself. आपको यही देखना है last day before the exam. Okay, last day पे आपको बैठ के practice नहीं करना है. वो आपको practice अभी करके रखना है. Is that very clear? I think if you do that, I think nothing can stop you from scoring well and cracking this paper. All right. So good luck to you. And we are very happy to answer any queries, any questions you have. Please feel free to reach out to us, and I hope that you'll all clear the paper with flying colors. Thank you very much.